So I'm sure you've heard this statement a lot of times. I mean, if you're a designer, you would have heard this statement a lot of times. And it's not about the tool or the software you use, it's about the mind using the software, right? That is BS. It's complete BS. It doesn't work like that. You can't use scissors to cut grass. I mean, it's going to cut, it's scissors, it's sharp, but that's not the right tool to use. You're going to be there for ages, right? So the same thing applies in design. You can't use all softwares for all design projects. I'm Utin Wisdom, and on today's episode of Design Spectrum, we're going to be talking about the right tools to use for what kind of design project. We can't talk about this without talking about the different kinds of design. There are different kinds of design, graphic design. There's visual identity design, there is marketing and advertisement design, there is user interface design, there is publication design, right? There's packaging graphic design, there is motion graphic design, and we have environmental design, and also art and illustration. But for the purpose of this discussion, we're going to be talking about just three. And the first is visual identity graphic design. So designers that specialize in visual identity graphic design actually collaborate with brand stakeholders, right? Maybe the CEO or the someone who is basically in the C-suite, right? To create assets like logos, typography, color palettes, and image libraries that represent a brand's personality. Visual identity graphic design designers must possess a general knowledge of all types of graphic design in order to create design elements that are suitable across all visual platforms, right? So you have to understand how print works, how a lot of other stuff works as well. So you're going to be working on stuff like letterheads, like complimentary cards, brand brochure, branded materials, and all that, right? So the design software that are used mostly by visual identity graphic designers are Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, and Adobe InDesign. Adobe Illustrator basically for creating logos, right? Logos and vector-based stuff that you need to print or be enlarged. Basically stuff you need to print. You might want to go and check out what Adobe Illustrator is for. Back in the day, I used to use Photoshop for basically everything, and I had discovered that was wrong. You can't create logos in Photoshop. That's just wrong. Even if you create in Photoshop, find a way to take them to Illustrator and make them out or do them properly, right? So the next is marketing and advertisement design. Let's talk a little bit more about the design softwares for visual identity designers. Photoshop, what would you need Photoshop for? Is maybe you need to do some manipulation with photos, pictures, and all, right? You need to use Photoshop. Maybe you're trying to tell a brand story, and you can't really manipulate pictures with Adobe Illustrator, so you would go to Photoshop. And InDesign is basically for documents or print stuff. These things that you need to print, right? So you can create print materials there, brochures. You can do it on InDesign. Your branded material presentation, your brand guide, you could do it on InDesign. And that's just basically it. And a lot more you could do with InDesign as well. So you need to do a little bit of research on all these softwares and what they do. So yeah, we can move on finally now to marketing and advertisement graphic design. This is the part of design that most people actually relate with. They relate with it because it has to do with your marketing, the flyers, the banners, the billboards, and all. So designers that function here, basically, they need to have like a really broad understanding of graphic design. They use the most amount of software as well. They can use 3D software, like different softwares here. So designers that function here are actually very broad. You get. So for examples of marketing graphic design are postcards, flyers, magazine ads, banners, infographics, brochures, vehicle apps, wraps, signage, so on, even PowerPoint presentation, menus, social media ads and banners, and so on, even website images for websites and blogs, and all that. And the softwares that you need to function effectively in this space is Adobe InDesign, Adobe Illustrator, Cinema 4D if you are into 3D design of any sort, and Microsoft PowerPoint, because if you are designing a presentation slide or material for your team or any client you have, you wouldn't want to put it in PDF. You want to put it in a PowerPoint form so it is automated, So that's it. And lastly, user interface graphic design. Designers here, so UI design focus on the user's visual experience and the design of on-screen graphic elements like buttons, menus, micro interactions, and more. So if you're a UI graphic designer, you have to have a clear understanding. They have to be like, you have to have, what would I say? So UI graphic designers must be team players, right? Backed by both serious graphic design skills and an excellent understanding of UI and UX principles. So responsive design and web development, you have to understand how, you have to have an excellent understanding of how UI and UX work and how human beings relate with it. In addition, you also need to have some sort of programming language. It helps you understand how what you're coding is going to be translated, or what you're designing is going to be translated to code. So you might want to learn stuff like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? So, and design softwares. Well, let's see examples of user interface graphic design are like web page design, theme design for maybe WordPress, Shopify, and so on, game interface design, and app design, And the design softwares that people or designers that do UI use, majorly Sketch, Figma, InVision, and Adobe XD. Some people use Photoshop, but I wouldn't advise. These are just the softwares I actually advise and recommend. And mind you, all the softwares I've called are not exhaustive, or they're not in themselves like the final. They are just what I recommend and what is industry proficient or good for the industry. So if you actually use the software I recommend, you'll be fine. You can use other software, but these are like the most famous and industry standard softwares to use. So thank you. And on the next part, we're having part 2, we're going to be talking about the other types of graphic design niches, right? There's publication design, packaging design, and so much, even motion graphics. So we're going to be discussing all that as well. So thank you for watching this video. If you did like what you saw and you want to support this channel, please like and subscribe, right? This encourages me and gives me more boost to do more videos like this and support the creative community. So thank you. Till next episode, God bless you.